DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're joined by Matt Murschel, college football writer for the Orlando Sentinel, who we feel really bad for. So, Matt, we're going to start with sympathy first. You have our full sympathy.
Okay.
You didn't expect that, did you? Well, I say that because I'm a TV guy doing radio. PK is a newspaper guy who's now doing radio, but he is a beat writer for a long time. And so I really got, talking to him, I really got used to the rhythm of being a beat writer. It is a grind in season. It is nonstop. It is not an 8-hour-a-day job. It is not a 5-day-a-week job. If you want that job, you better go do something else because you're working 6 or 7 days a week and you're working 10, 12, or 14 hours. And even when you think you're off, something happens and you're on again and you got to leave at the birthday party. And that's just the way it is, right? And then recruiting and now the transfer portal. But there's downtime. There's good time. There's comp time. And that's June and July. And you're chasing this Florida State bizarro realignment story we're going to get into. And it's wrecking your June and July. So you have my sympathy.
Yeah, it is funny. I was telling someone the other day that I remember, a decade ago that you would have at least a couple months where you could kind of take a deep breath and not maybe, work full, 6 days a week. You could maybe work 3 or 4 days and maybe even take a vacation. And now that's all gone out the window, it seems like, over the last 24 months because there's so much stuff going on in college athletics. And Florida State move, obviously, is the latest that we've been talking about.
From a distance, it seems like the relationship with the ACC is so bad that that's driving that. Could you expound on that?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think Florida State has obviously made it very clear they feel like that the ACC, hasn't been doing its due diligence to try to make sure that they're making enough money to be, got the same competitive level as the Big Ten and the SEC. And, they've talked about this for almost a year now, the Board of Trustees meetings and Michael Alford, the athletic director, saying, listen, we're going to wind up being $30 million to $40 million a year behind these other schools, and we can't let that happen. And so they've made it very clear they're not fans of the ACC. Now, they're trying to do what they can in the meantime, but, with this lawsuit going on, it's obviously created, a lot of tension in this conference. So I think next week is going to be a very interesting time when the ACC hosts its, football media days to have these schools there at Florida State and Clemson and have them trying to act like there's some sort of unity going on because there really isn't. Florida State wants to get out. Clemson wants to get out. And if that happens, who knows who else may follow them through the door. It could be North Carolina. It could be Virginia. They're just not sure yet at this point. So there's definitely no love there. And it's going to be interesting to see if this lawsuit doesn't happen the way people think it's going to happen. Is there any way to salvage this kind of marriage together, or is it beyond salvage and everyone's got to go their own separate ways?
I don't know there's anything the ACC can do. Just like the Big 12 and the Pac-12, they've all taken different roads. They've built their own network in the case of the Pac-12. They haven't done any network, and they've let Texas have their own network in the case of the Big 12. And in the ACC, they partnered with ESPN, and they signed a long-term deal. It's 3 different paths, but the fact is none of them generate enough money, and it's because of where the schools are, small population centers, in the shadow of NFL teams. And the Big Ten and the SEC, they got the most people and the most tradition and the most money, and they are just pulling away. Do you really think there's anything the ACC can do?
No, I don't. I mean, and listen, I think the ACC, what started this whole thing off was, you guys remember, is that the ACC wanted to create its own network. It wanted to have a network similar to what the SEC had done. And at the time, John Swofford, who was the commissioner of the ACC, they sat down with the school presidents and they said, we're going to make this deal. We're going to create our own network. And ESPN said, sure, we'll do that for you, but you're going to sign this contract that was a 12-year deal. And, the ACC said, sure, no problem. We'll do this. It's going to create so much more money. It's going to help us out. And it did create more revenue for them, but not nearly as much as what we saw from the SEC and the Big Ten. And I don't think anyone realized that. So, there is a little bit of this idea that, okay, yes, you guys did sign your name to this contract. You guys realize what's going on. But at this point, I don't think there's any other way for the ACC to be able to generate more revenue. You could do, sponsorship deals and all this other stuff, but it's not going to be enough to catch you up with those other 2 conferences. So, unless you're going to sit down and start looking at the private equity line, which is what the Big 12 is kind of venturing in, I'm not sure if that's going to be able to happen. So, there is no way ACC is going to nearly have enough money to catch up with them. And that's why Florida State and Clemson have both said, we've got to find our own way and go somewhere we're going to be able to find that kind of revenue.
Do they view the Big 12 as something that is enticing or just like a fallback option?
I think at this point it's a fallback option. I think they would love to go to the SEC and Big Ten. Now, mind you, none of this is being said out loud. I mean, they've just made it kind of clear in some ways that yes, we'd love to do the SEC, we'd love to do the Big Ten, we'd love to find a home that's going to provide that. I'm not sure. I've been saying this for a while now that I don't necessarily know if the SEC and the Big Ten were standing off of the sidelines with invitations ready to hand them to the FSU if they got out of the ACC deal. I don't think that was the case. I think they wanted to see what's going on here, and this is no slam dunk that that Florida State and Clemson are going to get out. It's going to take them a while with these lawsuits. So I think right now, as you heard from Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, that listen, we like 16. 16 is where we're at. It's where we see our future. Maybe, down the road if something happens, we'll look at that, but it's not a given. So then all of a sudden now the Big 12 looks like an option for Florida State if they get out. But will the Big 12 have nearly as much money as the SEC and Big 10? You don't know yet. Again, they're exploring the private equity options maybe to add some more revenue and put that in there as well. But is it enough to really kind of do a significant slice into the gap between the SEC and the Big 10? No one knows for sure. So again, it's a risk. I think that's the risk that the Florida State took when they decided to sue the ACC, and they're just hoping that it pays off in the end.
In the end, do you believe deep down the Big Ten wants FSU? And I get in the short run, it might look like they're tampering. They might be opening themselves up to lawsuits. So it might take a little time to play out. But a decade from now, Florida State, are they in the Big Ten?
I don't think so. I think there's a lot of things the Big Ten, again, there's academics that the Big Ten is really is has been pushing for its schools. I'm not sure if they want to deep dive into the South. I know they've gone over to the West Coast, obviously, adding, UCLA and USC and Oregon and Washington, but I'm not sure if they want to stretch themselves that thin. I mean, you really are opening your conference to becoming, such a large footprint that it's going to make your teams have to really do a lot of traveling. I'm not sure if they want to do that, but again, when it comes down to it, if they sit down and think this makes financial sense for them, they feel like they can get more options. Let's not forget the Big Ten and the SEC's media rights deal are going to come up in 2030. I think it's 2031. They're going to have another option. So at that point, if Florida State and Clemson are out there, maybe that makes sense to them. Maybe they can add that, and maybe that helps them out. I'm just not sure. I mean, at some point, and I've asked a lot of people about this, is there a tipping point? I mean, we've talked about super conferences. We talked about, is this going to happen? But as an individual conference, is there a tipping point of getting to 19, 20, 21 schools? Does it make it so difficult to do all your other sports when it comes to scheduling that it becomes almost impossible? But, money always talks. And I tell people that, if there's enough money there and they feel like there's enough opportunity, they'll take advantage of whatever's there.
Which is why you can see Brent Yormark. I think he can't do it publicly. I think privately, though, he'd be salivating over Clemson and Florida State because it would be a really shot in the arm in their expansion and getting football up to a higher level. So from his perspective, it seems to me if he could get both of those schools, he would jump on it. What do you think of that? Yeah,
I believe that. I mean, I think just how aggressive that Brett has been. He's not your typical conference commissioner. He's not a collegiate, administrator. He's a guy that runs the conference like a business. Just listen to him talk. His speeches at the media day were like a TED talk. He's talking about how are we going to generate more revenue? How are we going to make ourselves more viable? How are we going to survive? And, that's how you do that. You add some schools. You say, okay, we've added some Pac-12 schools. Now we add, let's say, Florida State and Clemson and, maybe, who knows, 2 other schools. Who knows at that point? And we increased ourselves. We made ourselves viable. And, you generate more revenue. You go back to ESPN and you say, okay, here or Fox or whoever, we can do more for that. And it helps their brand. So I would very much see Brett probably on right now thinking about that option and maybe even, not publicly doing this, but maybe even, talking to people about is there a possibility that happens?
Florida State had a phenomenal run for decades under Bobby Bowden. It really slipped. It looked like the brand was getting damaged, and they just seemed like just another school. And now the last few years, they've pulled it together again, and it was unfortunate with the quarterback injury last year in the playoff and the way that shook out. Do you think they're set up to be really good so that they have a big impact on whoever it is they're associated with going away, whether that's remaining the standard bearer in the ACC, becoming it in the Big 12, or being valuable to the two richest conferences?
Yeah, I do. I think Mike Norvell's done an amazing job coming in. You're right. I mean, this program, under Bobby Bowden was successful, had a long run. Jimbo Fisher comes in, they win a national title. And then, it just kind of all fell apart once Jimbo left. They never could find success after that. And then Mike Norvell comes in. It's taken them a few years, but they've been able to rebuild the roster. They've been able to recruit better. They've found some success. They feel like they're on the right path. He's done a good job of mixing in transfers as well, and I think that's helped them. If they can have another couple years where they're either winning ACC championships or competing in the college football playoff, I think that would be huge for them in the big picture. But they've also got to do it in other sports. I mean, it's not just football. I mean, football drives the engine, but they've got to do it in other sports. Basketball's been really lacking. Men's basketball's been really lacking over the last 4 or 5 years. Baseball's done pretty well. Obviously, they've gotten the College World Series. Softball's done really well. They've got to continue to keep all their sports up there. And have them win at the next level, because that makes everything, the whole package, attractive. And as much as football is the thing, you want to be able to say, okay, if you're the Big Ten, for instance, yes, we got football, but we want to also throw some basketball in there as well. That moves the needle, and I think they can do that. It's just going to take a little bit of time.
I think you got a little bit of knowledge of UCF, BYU, and Utah. Both are traveling down there this year. Malzahn building that program. Just speak to what awaits visiting teams coming in, and is that a tough place to play?
Yeah, it has been a tough place to play, especially over the last 4 or 5 years. They've done a great job of selling out their season tickets. They've had a lot of sellouts for their games. I think this game is close to being a sellout, or is a sellout. The stadium's over 45,000 fans. Once it gets going, it can be really rocking. There's a reason they call it the bounce house, and it's because if you're in the stands, you'll feel them jumping down, up and down, and it can shake the whole place. If you're in the press box, you can feel it shake, and it kind of throws some visiting media members off track a little bit when you're sitting in the press box feeling that place sway a little bit. But there is a lot of excitement. Obviously Utah has a wonderful history with what they've been able to do in the Pac-12. To have that game on a Black Friday in Orlando, I think that's amazing. I think especially considering Utah is picked to win the all, and they could be in that mix. And if UCF can have a good season, maybe they're somehow in that mix as well. And I think that'll be an amazing game. And again, you mentioned with Gus and what he's been able to do with this program over the last couple of years, they hope to have a bounce back season after last year. I think it took them a little bit to realize the jump from the American to a Power 5 conference in the Big 12, and I think they were able to do a lot of things in the offseason through the portal and through recruiting that they feel like will help them out.
They've kind of been labeled a dark horse here. You're in the middle of the league, and they jump to the top of the league. Do you think that's too big an ask getting to the conference title game, or do you have them pegged as the 5-4, 6-3 team that can take anybody down any given week, but ultimately they're not going to find a way to get to a conference title game?
No, I think they could get there. I think UCF could get there based on what they've been able to do. I mean, if everything goes right and they stay healthy, I mean, I think they're going to be in the mix. That's the one thing about the Big 12. You could talk about the SEC and the Texases and the Georgias and even the Big 10 with Ohio State and Michigan. But when you look at the Big 12, I think the Big 12 has a lot of parity. I mean, there are 5 or 6 teams right now that, as much as Utah is picked to be the favorite, I think there are 5 or 6 teams that can be in that mix depending on what happens this season. So I think UCF can be part of that mix. Again, they've got to play better on the road. They've really struggled on the road the last couple of years. They've got to stay healthy, and I think they've done a better job in strength and conditioning. So I think that's going to be a huge part of what they're doing. So, but again, if they can find a way to win on the road and win some of those games, I think they can be a factor. And they definitely have a schedule that's a lot easier than it was last year because they traveled 17,000 miles. They had a lot of road games, and it really became a challenge for them and something that they really struggled with. And it cost them at the end of a lot of games. They were not able to finish a lot of their games.
How hot is the seat for Billy Napier in Florida?
I think it's really hot. I mean, I think this year is going to be a make or break year for him. because he starts out playing. They start up against Miami, which is an in-state game. Obviously, that's a huge one. And then down the road they're going to end up facing UCF at home. So that's going to be a challenge for them. If he loses those two games, and then let's say they lose a game to Tennessee, which is in the mixing around there as well. If he's got 3 or 4 losses before the midseason, I'm not sure if he survives the whole year. I mean, I just think the fan base is not happy with the way things have gone. They've got one of the toughest schedules in college football, and he's recruited okay, but not great. And so at some point, fans are saying, we need something better. We're watching our rival Georgia, win and win constantly, and we're watching Tennessee get better, and we're watching now Texas is in the league and Oklahoma. They're a rabid fan base. They want to see those results, and Billy just hasn't been able to deliver that yet. Now, to his credit, he's trying the best he can with a schedule that's been so difficult, but they just haven't found the pieces to kind of to work out well. So I think if he struggles early on, or Florida struggles early on, I'm not sure if he survives the year.
Well, if he doesn't, he'll have our sympathy, the sympathy we haven't already reserved for you, Matt.
Well, I appreciate that, guys. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Matt Murschel there, college football writer for the Orlando Sentinel, covering UCF, covering college football throughout the state for the Orlando Sentinel. DJ PK, it is time for a Uinta Golf Major Giveaway. Be caller 12 right now at 801-575-ZONE, and you'll be assigned a golfer. Top 25 players in the world, and we'll have one listener who gets the field. In this week's Open Championship, Royal Troon, it starts tomorrow. If your golfer wins, you will win FootJoy rain gear in honor of the Open from our friends at Uinta Golf, serving Utah golfers since 1971. Caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE, 801-575-ZONE.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
Cody Williams, when he applies himself, he's truly awesome. He's 6'9". He can clearly shoot. He can dribble. He likes to finish on top of the rim. He's not afraid of dunking the ball. Really good defensively. He recovers really well. He does all the things. He's just got to recognize that some team needs him to be a star, and he's got to act like a star sometimes when he's on the floor. I'm not ruling it out. I just don't think it's ever been who he's been in his life.
All that stuff is teachable, and the stuff that he has is not. All that stuff is really hard, if not impossible, to coach or teach. But if we're going to focus on, personality type and does he play like he belongs and all that stuff, it's like, well, he's going to get over that. And if he doesn't, I suppose it would be somewhat alarming. But everybody has to figure out their role in the NBA.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. It is time for the 9 a.m. Slacker Radio Headlines, brought to you by Tim Dahle Mazda Southtown. Find your new Mazda at the south end of the valley at Tim Dahle Mazda Southtown. That's Tim Dahle Mazda Southtown in Sandy. The Utah Jazz have another game in the Summer League in Las Vegas. They're playing the Raptors 3 o'clock today on ESPN2.
Oh, Brandon Carlson, Toronto.
Making a positive impression. Another guy you liked.
I have liked him, yeah.
For all the right reasons. He's got height. He can move a little bit. He can shoot it.
Block shots. He blocked 6 the other night.
That is what they're looking for. So give it a shot.
Yeah.
What are you looking for out of the Utah Jazz? What do you want to see?
Dominance.
The Summer League Championship. They got to win the last two big and win the tiebreaker on point differential.
I just want Cody. If Cody Williams makes one shot, he's ahead of that.
Alex Sarr, 0 for 15. Alex.
Yeah, didn't Steve Young throw his 42 interceptions in his first start or something down in Georgia? What's this? The guy's 19 years old.
Yes, he is. That's a fact.
Alex. He's like, oh, no, man, what a horrible pick.
Second pick in the draft, 0 for 15. Congrats, Wizards.
The Wizards. Have they, sucked since Wes Unseld Sr. and Dick Motta and Elvin Hayes?
Yes.
No, they've had to have some success. That was 40 years ago, wasn't it? 50 years ago?
It's 40 going on 50. It's a long bleeping time.
They've changed their names 5 times, and they still can't win.
Well, twice. They were in Baltimore, and they moved to Washington, and then they went from the Bullets to the Wizards. So there
was nothing in between?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
They've lost 7 straight playoff series, which is the 6th longest streak in the
but
NBA.
how long?
They've gone
over how many
40.
years?
I don't know that. They've gone 45 years without appearing in a conference final. That is the longest streak in the NBA by more than a decade.
Uh-oh. This guy sucks.
Their last series win was in 2017. Looks like first round series they won in 2017.
Yeah.
That's a long time without. We were talking this morning about hope. And if you can't get to a conference final in 45 years, and the Hornets are next at 34 because they've never been. And then it's the Knicks and the Sixers.
Well, then why aren't the Jazz trading with those guys? Give marketing to those guys.
They tried with the Knicks, if you remember, and they couldn't make a deal.
Well, you don't want the Knicks now. They look to be pretty good. If you want to trade and get some potential player roulette as far as things breaking your way with higher draft picks, go to these teams that have sucked for years and years. They don't seem to know what they're doing.
45 years without going to the finals is the 4th longest streak in the NBA. So, yes, they have sucked for years and years.
I want to see more of what I saw or what I've been seeing.
Collier isn't going to develop the jump shot or the floater that would, well, both of those things would come in useful in this game. But he is going to beat people off the dribble into the paint. I'm confident
Use
we will
your
see
skills.
that. Yeah.
I mean, if you're really good at something, go ahead and do it. And then
that's
you've got time.
Yeah. Will Hardy, what is your superpower?
I mean, these dudes needs to be in the gym, need to be in the weight room, hours upon hours. They've got nothing else to do. These rooks, the NBA basically shuts down in August. Not you.
No. That's why they've got all these assistant coaches and development people.
If you want time off, go play intramurals.
Brother.
So, work.
Colorado football.
That's the most important thing that they can do right now is work.
It's Division I football. It's the Big 12.
That was epic.
I'm on the way out.
He's still at UC Davis, right?
Yep, and his son is now coaching Idaho State.
Yeah. Who probably led to him getting fired at Colorado? Did he play?
Yeah, it was his son that was the quarterback.
Cody?
Yeah, Cody.
Yeah.
And now, if I'm not mistaken, he's the head coach now at Idaho State, and they're going head to head in the Big Sky.
It's Division I football. But let's see these guys work, man. I want to see them be dogs right now. To me, that's the most important thing. Your competitive spirit. If Collier has 5 turnovers, 6 turnovers, okay. He has 5 or 6 turnovers. What do I expect? These are teens. Freaking teens.
When they interview them, they are just impossibly young. The older we get, the younger they look.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Well, that's what teachers will say. My students remain the same. The only one who changes is me. Yeah.
Yep.
Right? I mean, the person changes, but the age doesn't change. If you teach juniors in high school, it's always going to be the same age. You get older. And that's some for some folks that can keep you young. But, I'm not sure what level of work ethic they have to do what it takes, because I think what it takes is just an all-out commitment.
Yes. And that drive, and how hard do they want to work, and how focused do they want to be, and how many sacrifices do they want to make. And it's why it's kind of a waste of time with us sitting around in the draft. I mean, there's some things we can see, and you can see the height and the shooting ability and the ability to move. So you can see some things, right? And with a local kid like Carlson, you can literally talk to his coaches and start to get an idea of his work ethic and his commitment. You can get a little idea there. If you were really a scout, you'd be talking to 20 people, and you'd know people who knew him when he was 10 and 15.
But now all of a sudden you've got this money coming in.
And how's that going to change him?
Yeah, and how people around him change and what they want from him.
100%.
Yeah.
Talk to any pro and they'll tell you about this.
Right.
And the money's only getting bigger, so this is just getting to be a bigger deal.
Right. Yeah.
But
yeah.
the 50-year-old player, the money was less when he was 25, but it was still enough to change people's behavior. They all know.
And what type of hanger-oner, other stuff that I know the Jets, because they've talked to us about it, their social life, their dating life, and all those types of things, man.
Yeah.
They can derail guys, and they got to be careful.
Stall them out, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I do think that at 5 games, I've seen what we're going to see because all the stuff you're talking about isn't going to show up in games 6 and 7. And I think through, games 4 and 5, you leave with a different, I did anyway, left with, and I think most people did, left with a different impression of Filipowski than we saw when he was playing in Salt Lake.
Yes.
He looks more comfortable. He looks like he belongs. He looks like he's playing instinctively and moving better. That's a rebound. I'm 7 feet. Go get it and dunk it home, right? And in the first game, he was tentative. He's hanging out on the perimeter. I don't know that we're going to see that much more in game 6 and 7. Some of the guys looked good right away. I think Collier's got the ball in his hands. The Summer League game sets up well for him.
And he's got the body.
To do it. And he had the confidence. So we were seeing what he can do in games 1 and 2. Keontae had 2 30-point games. He's played in the NBA. He should be a lot better than most of these Summer League players. Well, he looked a lot better than most of these Summer League players. But none of these guys are finished products. Keontae's made some progress. Sure, he's had more time, but he's got a lot more progress to make. But with Filipowski now, I feel like, all right, now I've seen something out of all these guys.
And I suppose we can move on from the rooks, though, and go to Hendricks.
All right.
Because Sensabaugh's out. He's got a finger thing, right?
Yeah.
And George,
tendon in his finger in 6 weeks or so.
Yeah.
Which sucks because Dennis Lindsay used to say, I don't want you injured this summer because you either spend your summer rehabbing or improving. It's hard to do both. And now Sensabaugh is going to spend a big chunk of the summer rehabbing.
And George is done. He's seen enough. We're good to go.
Yeah.
But let's see Hendricks do some stuff. He's got a ton to prove, too.
Yes. And you'd like to see him head and shoulders better than players in these games, and I don't think we've seen that.
He has no less to prove, you can argue, than the rooks.
Yeah.
Just because he's a one-year vet.
Yeah. Plenty to prove.
Yeah, when you're still 20, and you're still a pup, obviously.
Yes.
So
where are you going to be at 22 and 23?
Yeah. I just, it's impossible, but I wish we could have some type of crystal ball and just get a better idea. Because we really, really don't know. I feel good about them, but I can't guarantee it. I wouldn't bet a penny on anything.
Well, they're not all going to pan out.
You keep saying that.
Yes.
Why? You're just going on some bell curve.
I don't believe. That's not bad. That's not a bad description. I just don't believe you can hit on 6 draft picks in 2 years.
I know, but take individuals. Rather than numerically 6 for 6. Take individuals. Can you hit on Collier? Can you hit on Williams? That's what you're hitting on. And believe me, I know a lot about hitting on.
Hey, now, there's some Arizona State humor right there.
It was too easy.
It was. I liked it. It's fine. The one I have the least confidence in right now is Sensabaugh. Right. It's the one we all have the least confidence in. But I'm still not willing to rule it out.
Well, I see role player. See, I think all those guys can be in the league in 5 years.
That's a win. If Sensabaugh,
okay, that's what I'm saying.
Can Sensabaugh play 8 or 9 years in the league as a role player? I don't want to go 10 because we've always agreed on 10. But if he's going to be a role player, let's say 10. If he's going to be a role player for a decade, that draft pick's a win.
Well, doesn't he? Role player, rotation player, to me, the 2 different things.
I was going pretty much the same. Let's go rotation.
I don't know. That I would be more surprised.
Yeah. If he can stay in an 8 or 9 man rotation for a decade, that's a really good draft pick.
What did Rodney Hood do?
Oh, I don't think he did a decade.
Right.
Yeah,
well, then if he didn't, then I have less confidence in Sensabaugh. Because I viewed Hood as a better role player.
Rodney Hood almost out of the league at 29. 2014-15 was his first year, so it looks like he played about, I'm going to have to do math on the air. That's never a good thing, 8 years.
How about Ronnie Brewer? I'm just looking for some comps.
Ronnie Brewer.
Had the funky form.
Because he broke his arm as a kid and it didn't get set right.
Right.
This is one of the oddest stories, and yet it was his.
Yeah.
Give me a second.
All right, I will.
Talk about something.
Well, I was born.
There you go.
There's one thing I said about you. You're all class.
Ronnie Brewer. Into the league, 2006 as a rookie, out in 2014, an eight-year run with 5 different teams.
Yeah, that's what I see for Sensible.
Yeah.
But the other guys?
Now, Brewer, the difference is Brewer was the 14th pick.
Well, what was
you want a little
20s?
more? You want a little more? Yeah, I think Hood, I'd have to go back and check. I think Hood was 22,
I was going to say 21.
Okay,
but I'm just
23. We were both wrong. He's 23.
Well, I said 20s.
Yeah, 23.
Yeah. Because that's what I see maybe for Sensible. But the other guys, man, I'm looking in 5 years. So 4 for last year's guys, 5 for this year's guys. I think they can be in the league.
Now, what's your second contract look like?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you get it because you think they're in the league.
Yeah.
So they get it. So that's something. That's something. And now, what kind of contract do you get?
That, I don't know. Check back. Of all the guys, I'm going Cody.
There's now 4 tiers to a roster. Which tier are they in? There's starter. I guess we can break it down and say All-Star, Hall of Famer. But let's just say starter.
Yeah.
Substitute, rotation guy. Now you're 8 or 9. But I do think there's now a spot in the NBA where, because of how many games are being missed, the guys 10, 11, 12, they're like a role player. You're not always in the rotation, but we're going to need you in the rotation 30 nights a year. You're going to have a chance to make an impact. Now, the last 3 guys, they're pretty developmental. That's garbage time to no time at all.
I expect out of 6 guys, and we should do this at another time, rank them 1 through 6.
Okay, we'll do it.
Who's the best?
List radio. Yeah. Yes. Let's get a consultant in here to yell at us.
Especially with our guys. I mean, the people have a lot of passion in this stuff. You know, a lot of passion regarding the Jazz. And I would put Williams at number 1.
And Sensible at 6, and we'll work on the rest of the list in another segment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
Recognizing that's a very fluid list.
Sure.
And it's written in pencil.
Absolutely.
And it could change.
Guys get a chance to change it. Did you see the quote, speaking of this, it came out today. I got to find this quote now. It's from an Alabama player. The gist of it is, somebody tweeted this out, and I've lost it now. But the gist of it is, Nick Saban is now on ESPN and the SEC Network, which is an ESPN property. And I don't know what platform he was on, but they asked him who's going to the SEC title game because it's SEC Media Days, and he thinks it'll be Georgia versus Texas, which I think is what most people think. That's kind of the consensus.
Who said that?
Nick Saban.
Oh.
Saban said Georgia and Texas. He got asked, and so he says Georgia and Texas are going to play in the SEC title game. And they asked an Alabama player about that, and he says, Nick is always saying, don't let some guy sitting in his basement decide what you think of you. Well, I'm not going to let some guy who's on a golf course all the time decide what I think of me and going to the SEC title game. I thought that was an awesome comeback from that player.
Yeah.
That was well played.
Well, I mean, you're probably going statistically. It's like you two in the draft. Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy.
Yep. There it is. I felt a little better about the Scheffler. I didn't make that pick. If I'd been number 1, I would have. With McIlroy, he's got the mental thing going. I used the second pick on him.
Picked him.
I did with some regret, and I picked him nonetheless. And I knew my regrets as I did it. But I'm like, why am I doing this? Because if he does it, I'll feel stupid for passing on him.
Well, I hope he does it.
So, full disclosure, PK and I are golfing earlier this week, and I got like a 4-foot par putt on the second hole. And PK's like, all right, Rory, you're up. Okay, way to put that in my head. Thanks. Everybody else in the group is laughing.
I love comeback stories.
Just messing with me. All right, DJ and PK, your feedback coming up next. Stay with us.
And it's all over almost here.
Don't go nowhere.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're brought to you in part by Teton Wealth. Ethan Millard with Teton Wealth will be live in studio with Hans and Scotty G today to help you with your retirement plan. Tune in or visit retireteton.com. Question of the morning. How cool will it be when MLB plays the All-Star Game in SLC? Chris, probably mid-90s, DJ. It gets hot here in July. Comedy, how about that?
Yeah, I laughed hysterically.
I could feel you breaking up there. Pull yourself together. Pull yourself together, and we'll get on with it. Shams says if the Jazz trade Lowry Markkanen to the Warriors, they want Brandon Podziemski, 3 first-round picks, 3 or 4 unprotected pick swaps, and another 3 or 4 second-round picks. So tell us, how about it? Doug says I'd do it. Robert says hard pass. That doesn't feel like what the deal will be, does it? Isn't that a lot? It'll be less than that. That's an opening bid. There'll be a negotiation from there, right?
Well, I think when Shams is making this point, I think that the opening bids have already started. I think that my thought, and I could be wrong, obviously, is that he's reporting on something that is down the road a little bit.
So this isn't the Jazz opening bid. This is maybe they opened something else, but this is the latest in where they are now.
That's the way I took it.
It feels very close to their opening bid. It does. Well, let's put it this way. I don't know about that.
Who's opening? From what
perspective? The Jazz. From the Jazz perspective,
do they want more? Or
I don't think they can get this much for Markkanen. I don't think the Warriors will do this deal as described.
You should have said that earlier. Not at 4 minutes to go.
Well, we got distracted with other things in that segment when we went nuts. Hopefully future and past as opposed to...
Yeah, but don't let me distract you. You got something to say?
That's hard. That's difficult.
I want to hear what you have to say.
That to me seems like a lot. If the Jazz can get this, do the deal. And the fact the deal hasn't happened, because I think the Jazz would do it for this, tells me that the Warriors aren't ready to cough up this much. Nor do I think they're going to be ready to cough up this much.
So you think if that's the deal, if you're the Jazz, you say yes.
Right. And I don't think the Jazz are wanting to move Markkanen, that they're feeling like they need to. It's like, hey,
nobody wants to.
If you knock our socks off, we'll do it, but you better. It better be fantastic.
You should have told me that earlier, man. I'm gonna knock your block off.
All right, well, let's talk about it tomorrow.
I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow.
You don't know if you'll be alive Sunday, right, Coach?
Yeah. What's tomorrow?
Tomorrow's Thursday. Today is Wednesday. Tomorrow's Thursday, PK.
You got to think sometimes. This isn't. I got the days of the week down in football season because you get in a pattern. You do. It helps. It's Monday. You got to go to a coach press conference on Monday. So I know Monday, I know Friday, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I sometimes get a little confused.
And Tuesday's the day to go talk to players.
Plus, man, I got ripped at the concert last night.
You did not. Look at you. You're all about the substances this morning.
That's not it. Have you ever heard of Natural? I was so fired up. Come on, man. You always go to that. Jeez.
Alex, we all know the Utah Jazz will hold on to Markkanen so they can be bad enough to not contend, but not good enough to tank. Alex is really worried about being stuck in the middle.
Stuck in the middle with you.
John, where did we get all these Debbie Downers on the Utah Jazz?
I know.
They're everywhere. There's a lot of them. And I think it goes back to what you said. The Jazz still mean a lot to people, and they don't have hope. And they really don't need much hope.
Well, hopefully they take these deals and these picks pan out.
Hopefully. And that's where we got off track.
I thought you were the driver, though.
And I got off track.
Well, then it's on you.
There it is. Jake and Ben are driving up next. Stay with us.